Click, boom, Saturday morning, the 27th of August in the year 2022. Do you, my friends and countrymen and national, national livers? People who live in nations across this world, and those who don't live in nations, or those who live in a boat in the middle of the ocean, how do you feel about the pandemic being over? Do you think it's over? Do you think it's still continuing? I want to hear from my doctor friends, scientists, mathematicians, theologians, and coronary experts. Is the pandemic over? It's August. The CDC has changed their opinions about a few things. I can't quite talk right now, but that's not my strong suit. My strong suit, hopefully, is drawing. So let's get to it. This is a sketch from 2 years ago, planning for a project for Mike Ellis. And that is now a book cover, I think, in the finished version. I have an idea about Star Wars. There's the AT-AT and the AT-ST, these like robot walking things. AT, let me just get a picture so you guys know what I'm talking about. Those who are not Star Wars fans, which I don't understand how no one's, if you're not a Star Wars fan. But so AT-AT are these giant walking robot tank things from The Empire Strikes Back, which I think came out in 1983. And they're really intimidating and really scary and pretty cool in the Hollywood motion picture Star Wars. And then there's a little one which is called the AT-ST, which shows up in the Empire Strikes Back movie, and that was done pretty darn well. So it's this little walking vehicle thing. It's got two guys. It's got some guns in it. It's supposed to be looking intimidating. It kind of looks like a face or a skeleton. Like it's got a scary kind of silhouette to it. It's a little haunting, but in the movie it was pretty cool. There's been many takes on the robots in Star Wars, many takes on the industrial design of vehicles in the different movies and stuff, and it inspires people, I think. I dug it as a kid. I thought it was cool. I thought it was cool. So, my friend Kay has a greyhound, and I was looking at how weird those dogs are with their proportions. And the rear leg really reminded me of this is a little sketch I did of a greyhound yesterday, just kind of planning and thinking about this project. And their rear legs kind of reminded me of that AT-ST, that lightweight all-terrain walker thing, and then the front legs kind of reminded me of the AT-AT, the much bigger, older elephant kind of brother to it. So I like the idea of taking nature and using it as inspiration for some industrial design for ourselves. I personally believe that what we're doing with computers and robots and machines is like playing God with the universe in a way. Like we're looking at what the universe has created, these incredibly complex biological systems around us, and understanding them and improving upon them by building them out of metal. And let's see what we can do here. Let's see. I personally don't fear the robot apocalypse dictated in Terminator and other post-apocalyptic movies, kind of like a Blade Runner and stuff, because machines break down without a self-healing component and a self-replicating component. They're just going to eventually rust and decay. They don't reproduce automatically, really. I mean, they have to mine the earth and stuff to reproduce and stuff. So I'm not afraid of the robot apocalypse. Even if you take a dog and replace its head with a revolver, I think we're still going to be fine. So, sorry, that was a big, long intro, a little incoherent, but welcome to the stream today. Feel free to chime in, go nuts. We're going to just start doodling and hopefully we find some. Oh, a very important part of this challenge. I don't know if you've been tracking, but AI art is a big deal. It's here now. I ran this idea past my friend Kay, and they used a software AI art generator. I don't know which one. I think it's called Dall-E. There's that one. There's Midjourney AI that my coworker Pete has shown me some interesting results with, as well as my coworker Greg Thompson. And these were some AI generated results that I think Kay did in an hour. And this blows my mind how good these are. They remind me of so many different artists because I'm sure it's like sampling from multiple artists across the internet and across time. And it's the results are incredible just for brainstorming and thinking. So I think Kay entered some information like Greyhound Robot AT something, and you can immediately get a sense of scale. Uh, when you're creating an image and you want to set scale, you it's important to use relatable objects so the viewer has a benchmark or a rule of thumb or a ruler to see how big things are. Um, this looks big because there's like tiny little detailed objects down here. There's like, is this a truck? Like at first, it looks like the back end of a tractor trailer for me with this little wheel and a big tank. There's objects like windows and doors that look familiar. Maybe this is a cockpit off of a construction robot of some kind. This looks like an antenna, just the scale of the wiring and antenna. And this looks like a telephone pole to me. So some of these lines and shapes and weirdly skewed objects, it looks a bit like crumpled cars. Like this could be a car frame. So to me, this visual information is looks like it's about 20 to 30 feet high. Maybe you interpret it as something different. Could this be small? Could it be small, taken from a low point of view? The point of view is important too. This lower horizon line gives us a sense that the camera is looking upward, which means, most cameras we think about being eye line high. So human height, that's somewhere between 5'2" and 6'5". So if the horizon's low, we're looking up at something, meaning the object is going to be taller. And based on like information between in the foreground between us and the object, we can infer the distance and then triangulate what the height is. And even if you mathematically can't do that in your head, maybe you can picture it subconsciously. Your body or your brain knows how to range stuff loosely. So, what can we do now? I mean, maybe this is going to be part of a series or part of an ongoing conversation that's emerged on the internet recently. What is going to be the role of digital artists now that there's AI based art that is reusing the entire library of digital art online and creating new artwork with it? I do not know, my friends. I do not know. So we're going to find out. But I know artists have gone through this before. Every 100 years or so, there's some kind of revolutionary invention in the technological world that allows non-skilled artists to create art. And 100 years ago, it was the movie camera, and 60 years before that, it was the still camera. It was 100 years before that. I forget when the still camera was invented, but I know in the 1860s it had become somewhat standardized. So, it changed art. What photography changed art because the use of art before was to create images, and now you can just use a chemical process and some shutters and stuff to create an image, especially portraits. So some people still like portrait paintings. They're beautiful objects. Absolutely. They represent an amount of work. Part of my mental process for drawing is letting the chaotic mind just doodle. And there's something about distracting half my brain, whether I'm talking out loud or listening to a podcast, something that is occupying one part of my brain that then requires my drawing hand just to go on autopilot. So there's this unconscious, subconscious access that I'm creating by limiting what I'm actually thinking about. And then I take a break and then think consciously about what I'm doing. I'm trying to draw the back leg here. It's just shaded a little bit. We're in the brainstorming phase, adding pistons. But I know for you guys out there who are learning how to draw and are wondering what the heck am I doing and what's my process, I'll try to talk through my decision-making process as I'm doing something. So heavier lines, maybe shadow side, maybe internal side, that can be a part of your visual language. I was never that good with line weight when it came to being a student in Mica, but now I understand the beauty of it because it's it's fast. It's a fast way to communicate foreground and background. Lighter weight lines in the background kind of disappear. Higher contrast stuff up front. Like I can add a little white highlight that suddenly makes this a lot more dynamic. It's one of the beautiful things about digital. You can add whites and light colors uh, completely opaquely, whereas working with traditional media, maybe you have to struggle with a layers and layers and layers of white to cover up what was underneath, if there's dark work underneath. So feel free to ask questions if anyone's tuning in here. Love to have a conversation while I'm drawing. I think I'm paying attention to the comments. Let me know how this sounds. 10 a.m. Not a lot of people on the internet today. I think they're all at the beach or the Renfest. Hope you're having fun. So if you're watching this later on YouTube or Facebook, thanks for checking me out. Just kind of a fun brainstorming exercise. This object doesn't feel massive right now. This feels like a small dog-sized shaped object. So let's loosen up a little bit. I'm going to get a new layer in Photoshop. Let's go nuts. I'm going to adjust some of my screen stuff so I can see my comments and things. Coffee today is a mix of Dunkin' and Starbucks. Not awesome, but it's functional. It's a blueberry large iced yesterday and then added some blonde roast I think I had in the fridge. We're looking for the caffeine, maybe a little bit of the flavor. Let's do a 3/4 view. So something that's funny about the greyhounds is how long their face is, and they have these really innocent eyes. And this is going to be an interesting aspect to this Star Wars drawing because the AT-AT and AT-ST, and there's an intimidation built into those robots or machines. But greyhounds are really cute, sweet, and sympathetic animals. They're so funny with their thick necks and long, elongated heads. Rib cage, pretty big. They have massive lung capacity, teeny tiny waists, and then extremely powerful legs. Really springy. Getting text messages from my sister in Scotland. She is shook at the weather. I'm asking why. Why, how, when, where. Ask the questions. Be polite. I think these are good ideas for the future. What can you do to heal the community around you? We've been doing so much fighting over the last 2 years over like why are we all stuck inside? Why can't I go to a concert? Why can't I go see my friends? I had a really good dinner last night with two friends I hadn't seen in years. It was wonderful. Down in Ellicott City, Maryland. Shout out to Liam and Cassie and little baby Viv. This couple has a super genius baby. This little 2-year-old was having full conversations with me, and it was alarming. Bright blue eyes, and if there was ever a human child in the year 2022 that would represent the culminating experiment of the Bene Gesserit from Dune, that might be this little girl. A super mind. A mind that can cross space and time. Ladies and gentlemen, do you think consciousness exists inherently in the universe, or is it something that is created and spawned? Answer in the polls. So this first stab at the legs is not long enough. Beautiful thing about Photoshop is I can just select and expand. There we go. That looks a lot better. So here's one of these tools. Like in the past, I would have to redraw this or get my eraser out, and I would have ruined the page. Like doing something perfect requires so much prep work. But now digitally, I can screw up, and I screw up often, and I can fix it using digital tools. It really is incredible. Like the digital revolution has unlocked creativity for the masses. There was predictions that as the society got richer and more affluent, we'd have more time for creative endeavors. And I thought that the writers who said that in the past thought it'd be a good thing. And instead of like beautiful works of architecture and landscaping, we get a little bit of that, but we got a lot of just junky memes on the internet. It turns out like it might not be a great thing if everything is allowed to be creative. No, it is. It is absolutely a great thing that everyone's allowed to be creative because there's going to be wonderful work that bubbles up out of the muck. There's going to be a lot of muck no matter what you do. Life is messy. The primordial ooze, the swamp. These are in, these are breeding grounds for life, and they're harsh and they're kind of gross, but something rises out of them and becomes amazing. So here's generally some proportions I'm interested in. What if this is instead of a AT like war walker, what if it's like a robot vehicle for getting across some kind of terraformed landscape? I like thinking in drawing of how the future would work. Like last night in my sketchbook, I was doodling like greenhouses. My mom. I should say this. My house I grew up with had a greenhouse added while I was a child. When I was young, maybe like 6, my parents added an addition to the house. Maybe I'll just tell this story really quick, and we'll get back to it. So my house growing up in Connecticut looked something like this. It's 2-story raised ranch, something like that, and we had a porch on the second. This was part of the addition. There was something like this. There was these big windows in the A-frame. There was sliding door, garage doors, something like this, and then the front door of the house was something like this over here. And they added at some point an addition for my grandparents, so they added a whole nother section. And then off the top of the section, the second floor was a greenhouse. And it was really cool. I remember seeing this as a young kid or being introduced to it when I was old enough to be thinking and observant about it and noticing that suddenly there was a room in the house that could still be warm in the winter. And even though there's no insulation, it was the sunlight would make it warm. And that was just absolutely fascinating to me. There was some kind of door here, I think. I think there was an air conditioner here. I do miss my home in Connecticut so much. Any of my friends from Connecticut watching this stream, miss you all. My buddy Danny, my buddy James. I think of off the top of my head. All the crazy theater people who made my childhood better. And I'm sorry if I made yours worse. Friends and relations back from Connecticut. Trees. Trees, 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 trees. So greenhouses are cool. And when I was in Santa Fe, New Mexico, I was looking at Earth ships and thinking about how architecture can make the world better. I'm thinking about carbon capture a lot. Okay, so what if instead of a war machine, this all terrain GT Greyhound transport? Let's call it that for now. ATGT. High speed, especially high sprint speed. So it's going to be able to cross like long distances pretty quickly. Imagining maybe there's like a solar farm or a wind farm that has got some like carbon capture machines and they produce a fuel like methalox or something. Deep cryomethalox is one of the coolest combinations of words in the English language. Thank you, Elon Musk. Uh, Man, this is really growing into some crazy ideas. I'm looking forward to. By the way, shout out to this game called Terra Nil. I'm really excited about it. I can't wait till it comes out. And it's about taking the wasteland and turning it back into a garden, like terraforming. So you start with like a barren earth, and then you plant ecologically friendly machines, and you have water filtration. And it grossly simplifies the engineering effort of this, but it feels really satisfying to build a beautiful garden world in a video game. When is this? There's no there's a free demo. Check it out. I think it's awesome. It reminds me a lot of a game I wanted to make when I was working for Mohawk. And if anyone's still there and hears this, I don't care. I don't care who gets the profits for this game. I just want to see it made. Which is a game like Off World Trading Company, which is a game I worked with people who worked on. And I love that game. Which is about terraforming and like improving colonies on Mars, but like I want a version of that on the Earth where we're reversing desertification. Look, I don't think a lot of the policies for the Green New Deal are actually going to work. I think the electrical vehicle mandate in California is never going to happen. There's not enough infrastructure, and there won't be enough infrastructure to support 5 million EVs. They haven't done the math. The policymakers haven't done the math on the energy generation side of that. But that's another conversation. But it doesn't mean that we can't think about better solutions to the future that were beautiful and more efficient and lead to a cleaner, better environment. Okay, so I'm by sketching and talking, I'm coming up with a narrative. Like, what is the purpose of this machine, and why will it? Like, why is a great like the why of the art is a fascinating question. Why are we making art in the age where AI can generate stuff for us? Well, maybe it's design. Maybe the AI doesn't understand all the context. So, what are we designing here? Maybe I'm designing a way for an individual to cross the desert efficiently. So we have maybe the head is the cockpit, and we have an opening door, and there's some kind of arm control, so the person can like climb in here, and then this thing goes up on the chassis. It gives an elevated view. Maybe when running across the dunes, it's important to have an elevated position. How does an animal bend down? Something about being higher up. I'm thinking about Dune and how they were using those dragonfly helicopters to fly over the desert and observe where the sandworms are and where the spice fields are. Another caveat, I'm having a little hard time talking today because I got monitor in-ear feedback on. I'm trying to improve the sound quality a little bit, and I need to be able to hear how loud I'm talking in order to project loud enough into the microphone, and it's kind of screwing me up with the echo. So we got a chair. Let me redraw this dude here. And this is the ruler, the benchmark for how big something is. Star Wars really inspired me to design, to create. Let me give a little bit more size on this image. Let's go 5,000. Let me expand the canvas. I don't want to expand the drawing itself. Canvas size. Pixels. Let's go 5,000, 3,000. 3,000. All right. Ooh, I was drawing. Okay, the background needs to get filled with this gray. And since this is our drawing and we want to have fun, let me just put in a little bit of color in that background. You know, the AI generated sketch that Kay sent me is giving me some ideas for this barren world. Like, why would okay, the Greyhound in the desert is interesting, and there's reasons there. Maybe you want to see over the dunes to where you're going. Maybe the landmarks are really far away, they're over the horizon line, so getting up a little higher in like a 20, 30-foot robot gives you a greater field of view without being airborne. It's probably, launching a drone would be a great idea too to give you that observational capability. Drone launch vehicles with drones inherent to them are now becoming a reality. I think we saw a little preview of that in Blade Runner 2049, the cop car that has the drone that deploys off the roof. I know that's not a new idea in that movie. It's been in other TV shows and movies. The ideas of a drone attached to a larger vehicle. It's been in submarines for 50, 60 years now. They want to go deeper, they want to do exploration. Instead of lungs, there's some kind of internal combustion engine here. Probably a fuel tank and kind of a blast system. Thinking about locomotive, like deserts and locomotives go hand in hand in my head because of the Wild West. Choo-choo trains. Shout out to trains. Joe Biden loves trains. Man's from Scranton, Steamtown, USA. Poor Joe. He's too old. Guy should just be retired and enjoying like a beach somewhere. Instead, he's got to go fight the Russians. Uh, More talk about the Ukrainian conflict later, my friends. Maybe this is going to be a robot to help the Ukrainians rebuild their society. Maybe that's what it'll be. Rebuild all that farmland. And then maybe go into Russia and fix that whole business up. If only they didn't spend most of their GDP on defense and got their shit together. Maybe the pads of the feet could be swapped out like camel kind of pads for the sand. That'd be interesting. How cool would it be though to have a giant running dog robot that can take you over the desert at 150 miles an hour? That'd be sweet. Yeah, I imagine maybe the Imperial walkers would have a hard time getting around Tatooine. We don't see that in the movies, do we? I don't recall. Maybe in Mandalorian or Book of Fett, there might be an ATST somewhere on Tatooine. Friends, if you see this comment, if there's a part in Star Wars in either the Clone Wars cartoons or expanded universe or anything where they have these giant walkers on a sand planet. Usually we see them in other places like Hoth is an ice and snow planet in Empire. I'm kind of liking where this is going. I mean, I think the AI right now doesn't have the ability to design functionality. You still need a human mind and a team of designers to come up with the functionality side of art. What's the purpose? We could feed a couple words into something and get a look. What does this thing look like? But how does it work? How does it function? What are the joint locations that actually make sense? I think that's still where the artist collaborating with an engineer can invent something. So I'm actually liking where this drawing is going because it's an explaining drawing. It's a thinking drawing. We have the 3/4 perspective. We got the relatable character here, a person, some kind of desert prospector person. And we have this machine, and I'm thinking right now this is looking to be it's almost like a piece of giant farm equipment, kind of like a combine or a tractor thing. Like I see these giant wheeled spreader machines that the wheels are like 10 feet tall and they're so cool. And if you, I live in central Pennsylvania, or not central, southern central Pennsylvania, southern eastern Pennsylvania. I don't know where you want to freaking describe. I don't know how to describe it. But they have these big arms that fold out, and they have little sprayers. And a person's like this big compared to them. This is the cockpit area. There's some way to get up there. Maybe there's like a ladder over the wheel. I forget, or I don't know. You go hang out with the Fescos on the farm and see how these things work. Shout out to my cousin Chris Fesco. If you guys are into farms, there's the Summer on the Farm series from my cousin Chris. If you want to see how farms work, Fesco.com. Shout out to my cousins. Do pigs scratch their backs? Questions on the farm. Buy rent digital. Neato. Thanks, Chris. All right. Got a couple distractions there. Sometimes it's okay to doodle on the side. Let me get rid of these things. I'll select this, just move it over, make it a little smaller. Make it a little smaller. I don't know what you guys watched on TV when you were a little kid, but there was some TV show like on PBS, like Bob Ross, and it was some guy in a jumpsuit drawing spaceships, and that was a big inspiration for me as a kid, along with my cousin Dougie Fesco, who was a big artist slash nerd. You know, best type of people, art nerds. Looks like I got kind of confused on my layers here. I was going to, oh, I remember now. I was going to add a layer to add some like dusty background. I have a chaotic mind, ladies and gentlemen. I get distracted. Purple shadows are fun. This pen tip is so old. It's got like a huge divot in the tip, so it feels like it's grinding into the screen a little bit. How are you finding ways to be creative during the pandemic? Look, even if you can't change the world, being creative in your own life can feel incredibly satisfying. My friend Eve has built this magnificent garden on her property, and it's so cool. And just to go there and hang out is a beautiful and relaxing experience. It reduces anxiety, I think, because being surrounded by food, like there's an indication of the future that if this is just taken care of, we're gonna have food and greenery, and we're not gonna starve when we sit in this garden. I think it's cool. It's very peaceful. So anybody who goes over and visits my friend and sits in the garden will immediately feel better about everything. That's how it works. What do we think, ladies and gentlemen? Time for a screen flip. Flip horizontal. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling pretty good about where this is going. I was originally thinking a Star Wars robot, but as I'm talking with you today and I'm letting my brain like link ideas together, let my subconscious run wild, like accessing dreams and memories while doodling and thinking out loud, I've come up with a different scenario. Maybe one that can help all of mankind. 30 minutes in, ladies and gentlemen. 34 minutes in. So instead, this typically this might be a time where I would save this and then do some more doodles to brainstorm more. But I'm having fun here, so I'm gonna keep going with this, and I might start getting into the thicker brushes. So far, it's just been line work. Maybe I might paint over. Let's go another layer. Let's hit the save button. Light source. I think just looking at that, inspirational AI image. It's a pretty steep vertical light. We're just gonna riff off of this. Now, if I wanted to go even faster, I could just sample colors from this as a digital artist. There's no law saying you don't have to do this. Like I could just grab and pick. If I like these colors, I can just grab and pick that color and then paint it in. Cheat a little bit. And this is the sky's more teal. I don't like that teal sky as much. Like it does make this image more exciting because it's kind of vibrant, but it's not as believable. It looks like there's some kind of filter on the lens, like a spaghetti western has a sepia filter that makes the sky more yellow, but like to my eyes, I've never seen a sky this greenish, except maybe in a storm, but then it's desaturated. What is nice though are these streaks, when drawing desert, like these streaks of lighter sand versus the darker sand, and that purple shadow and the occasional maybe like oil streak or something that gives a little bit of indication of terrain. So let's try that. Let me just try some of this like oil, like dark streaky bit, some light streaks, and that gives a sense of uh, this gives us some kind of sense of scale and distance, like the regularity, the size, taking things. Foreground is big and thick, middle ground is a little thinner, and then distant is very thin and very short. It's like repetition in distance gives us scale. Okay, terrain features and stuff. There's probably gonna be some rocks and things too, rocks and debris and stuff. Oh man, I don't know. I'm gonna leave this image off to my left monitor so I can reference it every once in a while. It's good to have some reference up too while you're drawing to source from. So things I might also load up MP pictures of motorcycles. Piero McGowan turned me onto that. Those are some cool machinery that have gotten lots of iteration over time. So I'm just going to Google search, pick motorcycles, and some of these shapes and objects are pretty cool. Maybe construction equipment, like a caterpillar loader, maybe. Big loader in honor of Josh. These are pretty cool machines. With that cockpit design. What is the visual language of a construction cockpit versus a military cockpit? I mean, that's going to tell us a lot about what the nature of this vehicle is. I mean, we can compare the difference between, like, even like a Caterpillar construction vehicle for the civilian world has these big windows and they're a little bit teal. I remember the Legos I had when I was a little kid, and this like blue glass was popular in the Lego sets. But there's military versions of this too. Let's look at like Israeli army loader. It's probably going to give me a gun. No, here it is. It gives me exactly what I'm looking for. The military version of that same thing on Wikipedia would have armored windows and thicker glass, and it's army colored instead of bright yellow. So there's a visual vocabulary of whether something is mean or whether something is peaceful. The red handlebars are kind of intimidating, but they're there for easy recognition for someone who's stressed. You want a high contrast elements, and red isn't bright over long distances, so it's only visible up close, really, and then from far away, that red kind of diffuses out and becomes gray. So back, and then there's like the NASA look. If you want something that looks really high tech, then you're probably going to look at like a Curiosity rover or something, one of these off-world, multi-million dollar engineering lab school machines. And if we want this thing to feel more spacey, we might look at the visual cues from a NASA rover. And we see a lot of white, we see a high contrast black, we see these little joints, and we see some very strange wheel designs. And so different sources of inspiration I might have on my second monitor while I'm drawing. Hope that explains stuff. So I'm thinking about my colors. I'm thinking about white, yellow, black. My sister says the weather's great. It usually rains all the time, but they have a perfect day. Wonderful. St. Andrews Golf Course. My boss is saying it is very hot out today, ladies and gentlemen. I am grateful to be in air conditioning drawing for you all out there. Shout out to one of my semi students, Hunter. You might be watching this later. Doing good work, Hunter. Keep it up. How we doing? So, maybe some kind of color scheme. White, yellow, red, black. But that black is going to be pretty sandy and maybe a little bit rusty, a little bit of weathering. Kind of liking this scheme. It's kind of German, isn't it? The Germans are known for heavy machinery. Big, powerful real eggs. Powerful badonkadonk. There's some kind of tail, and these things have tails too. So what should what could that be? Is it important to have a tail with a robot? The Star Wars universe doesn't have tails on their robots, and neither do the Boston Dynamics dogs. We got to look at that. We got to look at a Boston Dynamic dog just for reference. You might argue that internet is a bad thing because of all the negativity online, but the access for information is incredibly fast. Boston Dynamics Spot. See, so this has like that yellow, black industrial color scheme like DeWalt Power Tools or Caterpillar vehicles. It's got a sensor system with a microphone. See, no tail. Atlas is terrifying. The walking robot thing. Spot. It's very. That's cute. That's adorable. This is some great marketing. Got some cameras. Got some indicator lights saying what the status is. Got some side cameras. Maybe some laser range finding. Really cool. Really cool. So it's like a big spot robot. All right, so where's the yellow going to be? Maybe we'll have like yellow joint locations. Might be cool. I like some kind of striped chassis thing. Maybe there's like a beam or spine. There'd probably be a really complicated suspension system between the front and the back. Because this animal has a spine. Like the front end is rigid, and then the rear end is probably going to be like the pelvis is going to be rigid, and there's going to be some kind of accordion-like shock absorption core system. I do not know what that could possibly look like. I'm thinking about the arm of a construction crane. It would have to be incredibly robust. But we're just brainstorming here. We're not fully engineering this thing out. But we want it to look like it's plausible. The more believable your design is, the more people will like it. The general population, at least. You have to remember, the average person doesn't have a ton of creativity or imagination. It's something that you can develop, though. Oh, Joe chimed in. Hello, Joe. How's the stream going? Just finished building a cat apartment out of unused shelving. Excellent. Excellent. I am thrilled for your cat apartment. It's going well, Joe. Thanks for asking. I am playing with the microphone a little bit. I have some feedback in my ear and it's driving me a little insane, but I am pretending that I'm at a concert venue that has a lot of echo. My mic upstairs for work has immediate feedback, and I love that. It's been a while since I've been on this headset again, and I'm not used to it. Shout shout out to JoJo. She got a new kitty. Flew down to Texas to go liberate Tuxedo Cat from Saudi Arabia. I love that term. Look, I don't agree that it's that bad over there, but it seems like there's some questionable political decisions being made in the state of Texas. Uh, poor Joe. Welcome back. Welcome back to where you live. Saudi Arabia, though, that's a funny term. So this drawing is a collaborative idea with my friend Kay in Michigan. Let's use that orange for the fuel tank. I mean, it looks kind of like a biological organ with this kind of blood red thing, but it identifies for the user where the dangerous area is. What the got the methalox fuel tank. Got that diamond color code thing saying what the hazards are there. Hazard symbol thing, something like that. A little symbology is a way to give scale too. Using text is a great way to showcase size. I like using yellow for the structure, and I like using white for lightweight kind of covering surfaces. Heat shielding, for instance. Joe says audio is just the best. And it was good to get out of Texas almost as soon as I got there. Let's see what other comments. Okay, just thanks for commenting, Joe, and letting me know that somebody can watch this eventually. I'm going to shade in the drawing now just to create some masking, just to see the silhouette of the thing. Like I said, digital, it's always wet, always dry. We can paint over this very easily and get back to our light shapes. I don't have a lot of creative energy today, but I'm more productive than I thought I could be. It's by committing to sitting down and doing some drawing. Could we add ears to this? Would ears be fun? What would the ears do? Probably some landing skids for when the head comes down. Probably a good idea. Let's use that teal glass. There we go. That's cool. That's a good use of that teal. So I'm not going to use the teal for the sky, but I'm going to use this teal for the glass. It's very obvious what it is there. Color shift, tonal shift. Joe says, not a chatty stream today. I have a hard time when no one talks. I have a hard time when no one talks too. But I'm a little, I've been talking for 35 minutes and that's all I had. I don't have a whole lot in me. I guess you can rewind and watch the chatty part if you're so inclined, but it's probably incoherent and worthless. So let's do a quick summary of what topics we had today. Drawing versus using AI Midjourney like brainstorming. What does the human mind still give us in this age of AI created illustration? And I think it gives us intelligent design. So creating an object that can do work and be believable. The AI, I don't think can do that yet. Can design entire systems, anatomy, uh, functional robotics, but it gives us a view. Like this is Joe. I don't think you caught this part, but this is an AI created illustration from my friend Kay based on the input AT-AT and Greyhound. I think is part of the results. Here's some more results from that same input, and this software is called Dall-e. And it's on one hand, it's immediately impressive and terrifying that an AI can source artwork from the internet and then mix it with whatever language you're putting into it. So robot, AT-AT, Greyhound, and it's giving me these incredible results, like full color with an environment background by basically Photoshop cutting and pasting trees, ground from other photos, and then doing a photo collage thing. I mean, concept artists in Hollywood have been working this way for 15 years now, where they're doing these photo manipulations like cutting and pasting from source images and creating these quick and dirty mock ups of ideas. I think a movie that this reminds me of is The Battle of Los Angeles, which I only want part of because it looked kind of campy. Oh, it's interesting. The Battle of Los Angeles, the top results actually giving me the World War II anti-aircraft raid over Los Angeles. I think it was some weather balloons like came back on radar looking like bombers, like Japanese bombers. Now, I'm thinking of the movie Battle of Los Angeles. I guess it's on Netflix right now. And the robots have this like photo mashed kind of nature to them, just a lot of chaotic industrial imagery. Should probably go and watch that at some point. Let's put it on in the background. Interesting. Like something's different with the comment section on Facebook now, Joe. I don't know what's going on. Oh, I had another message outside of the stream. Woo! My friend Eve sending me pictures of her chicks, tiny quail chicks. Okay, back to drawing. Sorry about that. So we're looking at caterpillars. The original idea was a military vehicle with guns and stuff, but as I'm talking it out and thinking about the world and the state of the world, like we've had so much war with this battle in Ukraine for the last 6 months, this disastrous invasion that Russia launched. I should say Putin. I don't think the Russian people were all about blowing up their neighbors in Ukraine, but I could be wrong. It seems like Putin and his idiot cronies wanted to destroy the world. So the original idea was for this for a Star Wars battle vehicle that could be a high speed Star Wars thing, but I've kind of turned it into a desert terraforming exploration vehicle. Joe says, see, my brain mashed up the Greyhound and the ATST since the ATST is the higher speed guy. Yeah, that too. Yeah, I mentioned that earlier that the ATST kind of had his faster thing, but I never thought that looked that durable. And especially in the movie Return of the Jedi, the little forest teddy bear creatures were able to trip up these bipedal robots pretty easy. I imagine having a quadruped run through the desert or woods would have been a much more stable, much more dangerous platform. Some kind of articulating spine. I think the idea through the forest of the ATST is like it's got a narrow base so it can navigate through the trees and turn quickly because it's not so long. Joe says greyhounds aren't that durable either. That's fair, but at least they can stand on four legs without expending as much energy. I guess you could argue that the ATST can just lock in place and stand up straight. But I just think it's less wear and tear to have four legs. But then again, you're maintaining four legs instead of two. It's more maintenance. See, this is what you gotta have to have conversations with people while you design stuff. Some kind of chassis framework, some kind of protection for this fuel tank. Probably some kind of skids. I think skids would be pretty good for just in case like it has to go belly down. Some kind of rib cage. It's cool. We got some kind of articulating bit. It reminds me of a bus, like those articulating buses that you ride at the airport or the light rail midsection there. Just accordion business. When you can't figure out how the joints work, just put an accordion wrap around it. Maybe here's some kind of sunshade. Maybe some kind of long range radar sensor package. Tethered drone. Probably has its own box up top. Probably be various ladders I'm thinking about on this too. So where would I put ladders? Probably one along here. A ladder also gives us a sense of scale because of the rungs. Yeah, this feels cool. Joe says, I fucking love the ATSD. It's the perfect. The Greyhound is the perfect marriage of vulnerabilities. That is really all. Side fact, a larger playpen has not alleviated Eclipse's need to shout at me when I'm not visible to her, which is super special and I love it. So Joe is in the process of comparing an all black cat to a tuxedo cat. And am I correct in assuming that the tuxedos are a little bit more talkative than the all black cats? Joe says those Dolly drawings were interesting, but I agree they were not ideal. But boy, howdy, AI has come a long way in the last 10 years. You better believe it. You better believe AI has come a long, long way in the last 10 years. I think we're on the verge of actual consciousness. I believe that that Google engineer did discover lightweight consciousness by combining multiple AI chatbots together. I mean, I think you can argue that in many ways, an AI chat bot that can have a conversation with a user is smarter than a dog. It's having a conversation, man. It's having a conversation. Is it alive? I don't know, but I'm thinking it's smarter than a dog. People who have dogs, like my friend Eve, are going to argue, no, my dogs are brilliant. They understand me. They can't talk back, but they can emote and show communication. They do things. They understand things. They can hunt. Dog can hunt. Chatbot can't hunt. AI chatbot, what's the meaning of life? Someone ask the chatbot that and tell me what the results are. Joe says the tuxie is more gregarious. To be honest, sometimes I can't tell the difference between an AI convo and a human scammer email. That's what Joe says. I got irate this week, ladies and gentlemen. At 6 o'clock on the dot, was it Wednesday night? An Indian fellow who claimed to have the name Alex Brown was asking for my date of birth and said they worked for the Office of the Inspector General. And the phone number was from, guess where? Texas. Well, there's no Indian people living in Texas. And it made me so mad that I like even answered the phone. And dude was like, "Is this Thomas Symonds?" I'm like, "Yeah." So my new job has we get some phone calls from random numbers asking us things, and it's part of the job. It's part of the check-in process. And these are numbers with zip codes I'm not familiar with, so I feel compelled to answer the phone when I see a weird zip code because it's an organization that's outside of one particular state. It's a multi-state organization. And so I answer these phone calls that I typically wouldn't. And it just makes me mad. It makes me so mad that some random scammer telemarketer is trying to steal my time. So yeah, see, I'm thinking about how angry I am, and I'm drawing the. This is bad for my creative process. It's not good to be angry while creating things that are meant to fix the world. So let's paint over all that. What time is it? Time to flip the canvas. Joe says this is why a work cell is necessary. I get to ignore all the calls. Actually, do you have a work cell? I would. I wish I had a work cell. Joe says refocus, Thomas. Focus. Damn, I'm getting lectured while I'm giving a lecture. What's this dynamic? All right. It's fun though. Thanks for hopping in. This is good to have someone to talk at because I was running out of steam. Joe says I do have a work cell. Wow. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean the price of cell phones and cell plans at this stage, I think most work should offer work cells to people, and they're on during business hours or crunch time. I do not like using my personal cell phone for work related business at all, ladies and gentlemen. At all. Don't like it. Don't like it. Because you have to give your number, your private number, to people you might not like. Yeah, dude. Not a fan. Now, some people I work with get work phones, but you have to be at a certain level to get that. Certain level of importance. But I know we live in a very luxurious world, and like 100 years ago, no one had cell phones, so we should be grateful just to have the ability to have information that in our pocket everywhere we go. You can book dinner, you can order a ride. Like the conveniences of a mobile device way outweigh the inconveniences of being bothered every once in a while. But just like the boy band said, I want it that way. My one desire. Enough of that. This spinal cord apparatus would have to be way more durable, way more robust. Man, I feel so out of practice talking and drawing. Person's there. You might be wondering, why am I zooming in and zooming out? I want to see the image from the big picture. Does it make sense as a composition? Does the scale work? And instead of stepping back myself, I'm just able to quickly hit Control plus and Control minus and get it small and get it big again. Joe says talking and drawing is a mind fuck, though. It is. It's a developed skill, I think. And I don't know. I was talking to a friend recently, my new friend Lidica, about my process, whether or not is is my ability to talk and draw because these are different parts of my brain working, so I can autonomously do doodling and rendering and sketching through a different process, or is it just through experience? Like I've done drawing so much that it has been relegated to a subconscious or unconscious process that's lower in the serial order or like parallel order structure of my brain. So it's using less and less of my conscious thought and more of like automatic, uh, call it neural pathway control. Like I don't have to consciously think about what my hand is. I don't have to think about, okay, how am I bending my thumb? What is my index finger doing? All that is just automatic. It's complete automatic transmission. I don't have to manually stick shift what my hand, arm, eye is seeing, doing. All that stuff comes from 30,000 hours of practice. Joe says experience. Joe says experience. But I also think there's something to the mind. And I say that because I used to work with engineers, and engineers would be baffled. They would like engineers in the game industry that I worked with at Firaxis and Stardock, Oxide, Mohawk. We're really surprised how artists can do work and have conversations, listen to music, listen to podcasts, TV shows at the same time. I know one of the most prolific and best artists, Bryce Homick, was pretty much fired from Firaxis for watching Netflix, but he was hands down like the best contributor of concept art to XCOM. I mean, no offense to like Aaron and Piero, I think they did great work too, but like the efficiency, drawing for drawing, Bryce delivered more hits in a shorter amount of time. Like I think Aaron and Piero, I could be wrong, guys. If you watch this, feel free to correct me. I'd love to talk to you. I miss you all, but like I think Bryce got a real short end of the stick. Like he got fired for some bullshit reasons because people didn't understand that he could watch television and draw at the same time and draw circles around. There's 5 or 6 other concept artists at that studio that were nowhere near as good as Bryce, and they didn't get fired. So that's what I think about that. Joe says, but there's also a lot of chit chat in art class. There is chit chat in art class. I think doing stuff with your hands opens an unfiltered pathway to your mind. However, I think the ability to deliver art instruction and self reflection while drawing is experiential. Thank you, Joe, for that contribution. My conclusion from my experience in the game industry is when you're working with languages, C++, Spanish, English, writing emails, that's using the talking part of your brain. Drawing, in my brain, is not using the talking part of the brain. It's definitely drawing some resources from the talking part of the brain because I can talk way better without drawing than when I'm talking and doing this. Personally, I can't, if I'm working with numbers, like talking and doing 3D modeling, not a problem. Talking and doing like animated, anything where I'm punching in numbers at all, can't do that. Like my number part of my brain, that takes up 100% of my uh, processing power. So I know if I get into if I have to write an email, I got to turn off the podcast. I got to stop the conversation. Counter argument. Is it because you spent most of your childhood alone with a sketchbook and you just got thousands of hours of drawing? That is also likely and true. But man, I think there's something else to it. I think there's something else to it. Is it a talent? What is talent? I think of talent as being stemming from an enjoyment of doing something, so there's a willingness to practice. But clearly, there's something about the anatomical, the biological, the brain, what you're given materially to develop a talent with. Like, you could be 3'5" and be able to make baskets in basketball, but you're not going to play at a professional level unless you're 6 foot. Joe says, hope the rest of the stream goes well. Gonna lurk. Thanks, Jojo. I'm probably gonna wrap up soon. I'm gone on for an hour and I'm already like really tired. But what else do we need to do to finish this for now? Get a control joystick thing. One of the arms folds up. Control arm. Pedals. Orange seat. There's that canopy. I haven't really thought out this canopy very well. Just like some kind of random clamshell. So I don't, it's a little too brain intense to think about how this would work. So I'm just going to fill in some shadow and silhouette to make it feel like there's enough bulk that it's plausible. So one thing is like this canopy will not fully envelop I have to think of the geometry a little bit more. I think there's going to have to be. See how it comes down here, but it comes out to the left there. This is weird. I don't love that. I think there's a better way to draw this, but I'm just trying to think about how it would work right now. So here's a part where it's hard to talk and think at the same time. How does these shapes line up and fit and work together? This is where I'm making bold lines and then refining later just to think out loud. Think visually. And to think, you got to be able to go to the other side. You got to go to the negative. You got to red team yourself and say, is this possible? Does this make sense? Well, what if and the best way to ask does it make sense is to ask, well, does the opposite make sense? If you can't come up with a comparison off the top of your head, then think about the opposite. Maybe it's easier to go to the negative one than to the 2 to the 3. So I have option 1. How about option -1? What's the opposite? You might say, Tom, that didn't make any sense at all. What are you talking about? Well, up, down. 1, up or down. That's quicker than maybe like 2, 3, 4. This is more complicated. But I have. If I only have a thumb, I get 2 options. Or maybe I got 3 or 4 or 5, or maybe I have a whole axis. Let's clean this up. Don't need that anymore. Don't need that anymore. Let's put some technical chitter chatter up here. 8T GT all terrain Greyhound transport. Maybe reconnaissance. AT-GTR. It sounds like a car, doesn't it? GTR. It sounds like a type of vehicle, some kind of grand touring rover. I don't know, man. Because there's the GT for grand touring. Let's paint in some more shadows. I'm going to use blue on multiply. Go 30%. Something like that. And then let's lighten up stuff, more strong sun. Let's go a little bright yellow. %. Go lighter. I want to design this character down here. He's probably going to be fun. Shock absorption. Got some vents back here. Go back to normal mode. Ventilation things make them look robotic, right? Having little vents and fans and things. What's your visual vocabulary for your subject? I don't know what this ridge handle thing is here, but I like it. All right, so how are we doing? Let's compare what we got versus the inspirational material and have an objective talk about this. So inspirational material, Tom's sketch. So off the bat, the inspirational material is still a more compelling visual image, is more detail to look at. My brain is questioning, what is this? What is this? What is this? What are all these little things? Is this an antenna? And I'm creating narratives and explanations for what I'm looking at. Are these two limbs? Is this a limb? How does the joint work? Are these This is very strange, but it feels organic but robotic at the same time. I'm a little questioning what I'm looking at. What is this? It's a object of curiosity. It's a painting of curiosity. I could stare at this for hours and wonder what it is I'm looking at and trying to derive inspiration from. Here, this is not as compelling of a drawing, but I'm a little bit more obvious what everything is. This is a cockpit. Here's a guy. This is the scale. It's probably 16, 18 feet tall. There's some kind of antenna mast or drone up here. We have some robotic legs. We have some kind of fuel tank. There's more identifiable stuff. It's like, could this machine work? Would it be fun to draw? More practical questions I'm asking of what this thing is. The what is a little clearer. The why is a little clearer. But there's a long way in terms of the rendering side and the creativity side to go to something that's as visually comparing as this. So let's conclude there and take that with us today. So far, Midjourney is winning, or these AI programs are winning in the sides of the curious mind. But the hand drawn side for me today, the way my brain works, the way my arm works, is the more explaining. This is the how. This is the how. All right. Hope that was cool today. I hope this guy gives you all some ideas. I hope that by showing my process that it shows you all that drawing and concepting isn't impossible and it isn't overwhelming, and you can do much better and more interesting things if you put your mind to it and give yourself some time to be creative. Hope that was good. Hope you find to health and happiness in the future. It's been a really tough couple years and everybody's a little shaky coming out of it. Everyone's a little shaky, so hopefully we have some patience moving forward and we have a brighter future ahead. Thanks all for listening and tuning in. This has been Tom and the Tomcast, Saturday morning cartoon edition. Thanks, Joe, for chiming in. And if you watch this later on YouTube or Facebook, I hope you get something out of it. Take care.